At 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun wasn't the only thing rising on my front lawn. My blood pressure was skyrocketing, and the reason was standing right there in the driveway. It wasn't a burglar, it wasn't a lost delivery driver. It was a woman in a pair of bright purple pajama pants covered in cartoon cats, wearing a neon green tank top that clashed so hard it actually hurt my eyes, and holding a 5-gallon bucket of yellow paint like she was preparing for some kind of unholy ritual. I stood on my porch, coffee mug frozen halfway to my mouth, watching in absolute, paralyzed silence as she dipped a large brush into the bucket and then, with a swing that would have made a major league batter proud, slapped a thick, dripping layer of neon yellow latex paint right across the face of my brand new $25,000 solar panel array. She didn't stop at one. She moved to the next, humming to herself, painting over the photovoltaic cells like she was whitewashing a fence in a Mark Twain novel. When she finally noticed me standing there, she didn't run. She didn't look guilty. She turned around, adjusted her glasses, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the terrifying, beatific smile of someone who genuinely believes they are doing God's work by destroying your property. "Good morning, Mr. Reeves," she called out, her voice chirpy and bright. I decided to fix the aesthetic problem myself. The yellow is much more cheerful, don't you think? I didn't scream. I didn't rush her. I just stood there, feeling the cold morning air hit my face, and I knew one thing for absolute certain. Today was not going to end peacefully. But what Janine Wilcox didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know because she never bothered to listen to anyone but herself, was that she hadn't just vandalized my property. She had just cut the power to the entire neighborhood's streetlights, and the sun was about to set on her little empire. But let's rewind a bit, because to understand why a grown woman was painting solar panels in her pajamas at dawn, you have to understand Pine Ridge, and you have to understand the 6 months of suburban warfare that led us to this moment. My name is Clayton Reeves. I'm a consulting engineer, specifically dealing with electrical systems for large-scale outdoor installations, museums, parks, that kind of thing. I spent years in California working with energy companies, so when I moved to Denver 6 months ago for a fresh start, I brought some of that West Coast sustainability mindset with me. I bought a house in Pine Ridge because it looked perfect. Manicured lawns, big trees, quiet streets. It looked like the kind of place where you could exhale. I decided to install a state-of-the-art solar array. This wasn't just a couple of panels from a hardware store. This was a $25,000 high-efficiency system designed not just to power my home, but to integrate with the local microgrid. It was sleek, black, low profile. Honestly, it was a thing of beauty if you're a nerd for infrastructure like I am. The installation took 3 weeks, and that's when I first felt it. The fishbowl effect. You know that feeling when you're being watched? I'd be out in the driveway talking to the contractors, and I'd see curtains twitching across the street. Mrs. Henderson, a jogger who ran with the precision of a Swiss watch, would slow down to a crawl every time she passed my house, staring at the roof like I was installing a satellite dish to communicate with Mars. The Johnson family next door suddenly developed a deep passion for watering their lawn specifically when I was outside. But the general of this army of eyes was Janine Wilcox. She showed up the first time on a Tuesday. I was up on a ladder, adjusting a bracket, when I heard a sound that can only be described as the squeak of doom. I looked down, and there she was. She was wearing what I would come to learn was her uniform, faded pajama pants, an oversized wool sweater that had seen better decades, and plastic gardening clogs that squeaked with every step. She was holding a clipboard against her chest like a shield. "Excuse me," she shouted up at me. Her voice had that tone, you know, the one that cuts through glass. "We need to talk about this situation." I climbed down, wiping grease off my hands, trying to be the good neighbor. "Hi there, I'm Clayton. I just moved in." She didn't shake my hand. She just gestured vaguely at my roof with a look of utter disgust. "I'm Janine Wilcox, HOA president, and we need to discuss this eyesore you've created. This neighborhood has maintained certain standards since 1986, Mr. Reeves. These contraptions, they don't fit the community aesthetic." I tried to explain. I put on my best engineer explaining things to a client voice. "Actually, Janine, these aren't just for me. They're part of a pilot program. They help stabilize the load for the local grid. They actually help power the neighborhood street lighting system. It's pretty cool technology." She looked at me like I had just offered to sell her a bridge. "Cool? Mr. Reeves, this is Pine Ridge, not some experimental commune. We have rules. We have traditions. These panels are a violation of everything this community stands for. She started scribbling furiously on her clipboard. You will be receiving official notice within 24 hours. I suggest you start making arrangements to remove them. Then she turned and squeaked away, leaving me standing there wondering what I had just stepped into. That evening, I met my neighbor on the other side, Colleen. Colleen is a real estate attorney, sharp as a tack, cynical, and the only person in the neighborhood who seemed to see the absurdity of it all. She saw me staring at my roof and laughed. "Welcome to Pine Ridge," she said over the fence, where Janine Wilcox thinks she's running a historical preservation society instead of a homeowners association. Colleen filled me in. Janine had been ousted from her last HOA for overreach and had been on a warpath ever since she inherited her grandmother's house here. "She has control issues," Colleen warned me. "But don't let her bully you. Your panels are legal. Colorado law is pretty clear on solar access." She's bluffing. I thought she was bluffing too. Until the next morning. I walked out to get the mail and found my front gate looked like it had a disease. It was covered, literally plastered, in bright yellow stickers. They were on the posts, the slats, the mailbox. Aesthetic violation, immediate compliance required. It looked like a crime scene. And just like before, I could feel the eyes. The curtains twitching. The neighbors pretending not to look while watching me peel off sticker after sticker. Janine had declared war, and she wanted an audience. 3 days later, I got a summons. An emergency community meeting held in Janine's backyard during the monthly neighborhood barbecue. Because nothing says fair trial like being put on blast while people are trying to eat potato salad. I walked over there with a folder full of permits, city approvals, and engineering specs. Her backyard was packed. People were eating burgers, chatting, but the tension was thick. Janine stood behind a card table next to her grill, wearing an apron over her pajamas, wielding a spatula like a gavel. "Thank you all for coming," she announced. "We are here to address a serious threat to our community's character. Mr. Reeves has installed an unauthorized industrial facility on his roof." I stood up. "It's a residential solar array, Janine. And I have the permits right here." Then, Marge Dixon stood up. Marge was Janine's lieutenant, a woman who seemed to live her life through the lens of her smartphone camera. "I have video proof that Mr. Reeves was aggressive," she shouted. She held up her phone and played a video. It was me, talking to my contractor, waving my hands around while explaining the wiring. But she had cut the audio and zoomed in, so it looked like I was screaming at the guy. "He's unstable," Marge yelled. "We live here. We don't want an industrial plant next door." Dale Ferguson, a quiet guy who lived 2 streets over, spoke up. Dale was an electrical engineer too, retired. "Look," he said, flipping a burger on the grill. "I've seen the specs. Clayton's setup is solid. It meets code. And honestly, it's impressive tech." Janine slammed the spatula down so hard grease splattered everywhere. "Technical specs are not the issue, Dale. This is about the soul of Pine Ridge. If we let one person ignore our standards, where does it end? Anarchy." She called for a vote right then and there. All in favor of requiring removal within 30 days? 5 hands went up. All opposed. For hands, including Dale and Colleen. "The motion passes," Janine declared, looking triumphant. "You have 30 days, Mr. Reeves, or we take legal action." I walked home feeling like I was in the Twilight Zone. But as I was leaving, I overheard Marge whispering to Janine, "Don't worry, I'm keeping a log. I'm watching him." I was being surveilled. Over solar panels. I had to go to Phoenix for a job a few days later. Bad timing, but I couldn't reschedule. I was gone for 3 days. I flew back late Friday night, exhausted, crashed in my bed, and woke up Saturday morning to the scene I described earlier. "Janine, the paint, the smile. You painted over my panels," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've solved the problem," she said, holding up her phone. She was live streaming herself. "See, folks, sometimes you have to take charge. The yellow matches the marigolds in the common area." She put a stack of papers on my windshield. "That's a fine. $500 per panel for noncompliance." I pulled out my phone and started recording her recording me. "Janine, this is vandalism. You've caused thousands of dollars in damage." "It's enforcement," she chirped. "Protected by the covenants." Marge was there too, lurking by the bushes, filming from a second angle. It was a coordinated strike. They had planned this. They turned property destruction into performance art. I called the police. I called my insurance. I called my lawyer. By Monday, I had a case file thick enough to choke a horse. But Janine wasn't backing down. She countersued me for harassment and intimidation, using Marge's creepy surveillance logs as proof that I was a danger to the community. I was ready to quit. I was ready to sell the house and move back to California. But then, I talked to Dale. Dale came over to my garage on Monday evening. He looked worried. "Clayton," he said, "I don't think you realize, and I know for a fact Janine doesn't realize, what that system was actually doing." "It feeds the grid," I said. "I know." "No," Dale said. "It doesn't just feed the grid. It's the primary stabilizer for the neighborhood lighting loop. The developer cheaped out on the transformers 10 years ago. Your system was the patch. The utility company set it up so your excess power charges the battery banks for the streetlights. Without your panels, the batteries run dry." I stared at him. "How long?" 72 hours, Dale said. "Give or take." They painted them Saturday morning. "The batteries will die Tuesday night." Tuesday night. That was tomorrow. "Does Janine know?" I asked. Dale laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Janine thinks electricity is magic that comes out of the wall. She has no clue." Colleen came over later. We sat in my kitchen, and I told her what Dale said. Her eyes lit up. "Clayton," she said, "don't clean the paint." "What?" "Don't clean it. Not yet. Let the lights go out. Let the neighborhood see exactly what happens when Janine fixes things." It was a gamble. It was petty. But looking at my yellow-smeared roof, I decided I didn't care. Tuesday night came. I sat by my front window with a cup of coffee, watching the street. The sun went down. The automatic sensors kicked in, and the streetlights flickered to life. 8 p.m., 9 p.m. At 9:23 p.m., the first light went out. It was down at the end of the block. Just a flicker, then darkness. Then the next one, and the next one. It was like watching dominoes made of shadow. The darkness crept up the street, swallowing the manicured lawns and the white picket fences. By 10:30 p.m., Pine Ridge was pitch black. And out here, without the streetlights, it is dark. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Then the chaos started. I heard a scream. I ran outside with a flashlight. Mr. Polk, an elderly veteran 2 doors down, had tripped over a sprinkler head trying to get his mail in the dark. His daughter was helping him up. He was okay, just shaken, but he was angry. People started coming out of their houses, wielding flashlights, looking confused. The group chat blew up. "What's happening? Why is the power out? Did anyone pay the electric bill?" And then, I saw her. Janine. She came marching down the street with a massive heavy-duty flashlight strapped to her head like a miner, clipboard in hand. She was going door to door, telling people to stay calm, acting like the general of the dark. She marched up to my driveway. I was standing there with Dale. "Mr. Reeves," she shouted, blinding me with her headlamp. "We have a crisis. The lighting system has failed. I need you to, I don't know, do something. You're the engineer." I looked at her. I looked at my roof, invisible in the dark. "I can't do anything, Janine," I said softly. "Why not?" she demanded. "Because my system is offline," I said. "It's been offline since Saturday morning. Someone vandalized the solar intake, covered it in paint." She stopped. The beam of her light shook a little. That has nothing to do with the streetlights." Dale stepped forward. "Actually, Janine, it has everything to do with them. Clayton's panels power the streetlights. You painted over the switch." The realization hit her like a physical slap. She stood there, mouth open, as neighbors started to gather around, listening. "Fix it," she whispered. Then she screamed it. "Fix it. Clean them off right now." "I can't," I said. "It's a crime scene. I can't touch evidence until the insurance adjusters get here." She turned and ran back into the darkness. Wednesday morning was the reckoning. The sun came up, revealing a neighborhood that looked hungover and angry. Kids had to walk to the bus stop with flashlights because the morning was still dim. People were tired. At 9 a.m., the utility trucks arrived. Not just one, 3 of them. Denver Power and Light does not play around with their infrastructure. Rick, the senior engineer, knocked on my door. He looked furious. "Mr. Reeves, we have a total grid failure on the lighting loop. We traced the drop to your node." I took him to the backyard. I showed him the panels. "Jesus Christ," Rick muttered. "Who paints solar panels?" I handed him the folder. The photos. The video of Janine live streaming her crime. "The HOA president," I said. Rick got on his radio. Dispatch, we have intentional sabotage of utility infrastructure. Yeah, send the city attorney. And send the police. By noon, my street looked like a parade ground. Police cars, city vehicles. Rick went over to Janine's house. I watched from the window. She answered the door in her paint-stained sweatpants. I saw her waving her arms, pointing at my house, screaming. Rick just stood there, writing things down. The news spread fast. Janine broke the lights. It was the only thing anyone was talking about. Mrs. Patterson came by and apologized to me, tears in her eyes. I had no idea, she said. She told us they were dangerous. At 4 p.m., Dale came by. Emergency meeting, he said. Tonight. Community center. Bring the video. The meeting was standing room only. We had to use battery-powered lanterns because the center was on the same lighting loop as the streets. It was dramatic, I'll give it that. Shadows dancing on the walls, angry murmurs filling the room. Janine sat in the front row, looking small. Her confidence was cracking. She tried to stand up and take control. Everyone, please. This is a temporary setback. We are addressing the issue. Sit down, Janine. Tom Chun, a mild-mannered software guy, shouted from the back. You broke the neighborhood. Dale took the floor. He set up a portable projector aimed at a white sheet. We are here to understand why we are in the dark, Dale said. He put up the first slide. My beautiful, clean solar panels. This is the system Clayton installed. It saved our neighborhood $12,000 in energy costs over the last 6 months. Next slide. The yellow panels. The room gasped. It actually gasped. It looked violent. And this, Dale said, is why the lights went out. Then, he played the video. Janine, on the big screen, holding the paintbrush, smiling, bragging about taking matters into her own hands. The silence in that room was deafening. It wasn't the silence of confusion anymore. It was the silence of judgment. Colleen stood up. As a lawyer, she said, her voice cutting through the quiet, I need to tell you all where we stand. We are looking at criminal vandalism. We are looking at liability for Mr. Polk's injury. The utility company is calculating damages for the infrastructure disruption. We could be looking at a special assessment of thousands of dollars per home to pay for Janine's art project. That was the turning point. You can mess with people's neighbors, but you do not mess with their wallets. Janine stood up, tears streaming down her face. I was protecting our character. I did it for you. For the aesthetic. You did it for your ego. Mrs. Patterson yelled. And you live-streamed it. Tom Chin made the motion. I moved to remove Janine Wilcox as president, effective immediately, and to use HOA funds to fully restore Clayton's system. The vote was 43-0. Even Marge Dixon abstained, trying to shrink into the wallpaper. Janine didn't wait for the end. She grabbed her clipboard and ran out of the room, into the dark street she had created. The aftermath was swift. The new board, led by Mrs. Patterson, who is a bulldog, by the way, authorized a professional cleaning crew. It took 3 days and $15,000 to strip the paint and replace the damaged cells. But the real justice came from the city. They charged Janine with vandalism and interference with public utility infrastructure. It's a serious charge. She ended up pleading out. She got probation, a massive fine, and she had to pay full restitution. She put her house on the market a month later. She moved to a condo downtown. I heard it doesn't have an HOA. 3 weeks later, I was standing in my backyard with Colleen. The sun was setting. Suddenly, click. The streetlights hummed to life. The neighborhood was bathed in that warm, artificial glow. Nice work, Mr. President, Colleen joked. They had tried to nominate me, but I declined. I'm just a consultant. I regret one thing, I said, looking up at my clean, gleaming panels. What's that? I should have installed more of them. The neighborhood is different now. It's quieter, but in a good way. People wave. Marge stopped filming people and started gardening. And every time I look at my solar meter spinning backwards, feeding power to the lights that keep my neighbors safe, I think about Janine. I think about how she was so obsessed with how things looked that she forgot how things work. She thought power came from a clipboard and a title. She didn't realize that real power keeps the lights on. Pine Ridge learned a lesson that week. We learned that progress doesn't have to look like the past. And we learned that sometimes, the biggest threat to a community isn't the new technology on the roof. It's the person willing to burn it all down just to be right. So, I have to ask you guys, have you ever dealt with someone who was so obsessed with rules they forgot about reality? Have you ever had a neighbor destroy something valuable just because they didn't like the look of it? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever wanted to paint over someone's bad attitude, hit that like button. It helps the channel, and honestly, it helps me pay for the extra security cameras I installed, just in case Marge gets bored with gardening. Thanks for watching, everyone. Keep your lights on, and I'll see you next time.